Hi guys, wonderful ladies in the FFE. I think I'm on about 7 o'clock, but I thought if I just jump on now and hopefully ramble for a couple of seconds and hopefully some people will jump on and join us. I've decided to sneak outside into the summer house and hopefully hide away from the dog and the kids and phone ringing and anything else like that as well. So hopefully I will be undisturbed, but we never know. Hiya Lindsay, how are you? Thanks for joining. So I'm going to be talking about staying focused and getting the job done. So a nice positive one. So hopefully we'll have a few people join us and I won't have to ramble too long. I'm having to hold the phone because it doesn't matter where I sit. There's sunshine in the way. So I figured if I hold it then I'll at least be able to control the amount of light. And I've got my cup of tea. Although my cup of tea is a Christmas mug. But there you go. So, I will make a start. Hopefully some people will join us as well, Lindsay, so it's not just me and you nattering to ourselves. So, the subject I wanted to talk about was about staying focused. And the thing is, when you're in a job and you're working 9 till 5 or 7 till 10 or whatever hours you do, you kind of have usually a boss on your back who says, this report's got to be done at 9 o'clock every morning, or this has got to be done every Thursday. And you kind of have these deadlines that are set for you. And if you're somebody that kind of leaves everything to the last minute, you're still working to somebody else's deadlines. So you still get it done on time. Oh, I shall invite people. That's a good idea. And let's just make sure I don't press the delete button. Oh, hang on. I can't invite people. There we go. Just chatting to myself a little bit. Unfortunately, it lets me invite all my friends list, so I'm not quite sure who's in the group and who isn't. So, would be easy if I was technically minded, but I can't remember all the people in the group. So, I've invited Raina and a few other people, so hopefully they'll jump on. But if you know of anybody that should be here, please invite them as well. That would be cool. So if you're somebody who is working to other people's deadlines, it's a lot easier to stay focused because you've got somebody nagging at you and telling you when to do the work. Thank you, you're a star. Whereas when you're self-employed and you're a entrepreneur, there's not that kind of push sometimes, and your deadlines are set for yourself. So one of two categories: you're either somebody who is so determined and really driven and you set yourself deadlines and you stick to them, or you're the opposite side of the spectrum where you don't, and you kind of think, it's my business, I can do it tomorrow. Actually, I've been invited out for lunch today, so I'll go out for lunch and I'll finish that work off tomorrow. And you can keep putting things off. And procrastination is bad enough in most people anyway, but if you're a self-employed entrepreneur, it's even harder because you don't have somebody nagging at you. Now, you do have the added thing of finances, so obviously if you don't work hard enough, then you've got no money coming in, so that can be a drive. But also you might have a client, so if you've got a client coming at 2 o'clock, you know that you need to be prepared for that client at 2 o'clock. But if you're not working to a client and you're not working to any other deadlines like that, it's very easy to kind of take a little bit too long to do something or put something off. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was a little trick that kind of makes you stay focused on a task and get it finished so that you don't procrastinate. So it's not about fixing procrastination, because that's a much bigger deal really, and it would take a lot longer than a 30-minute training on live to get rid of that. But what it can do is help you to stay focused on what you are doing, so that when it comes to getting tasks done, you actually get through them and you get them gone and you get them done. So it's there's several different types of it. The one I'm going to talk about is a 50-10 ruling, and that is quite well known, and there are lots of different names for it. I did try to Google the specific name, but there are so many different people that have invented this, apparently, that it's got several names. So I'm not going to give any particular name and get it wrong. But it's a 50-10 rule. Now, you can kind of guess where it's going. But there is a 25-minute one, a 45-minute one. There's even a 57 to 17-minute, and then there's a 52 to 15-minute ruling. So lots of people have obviously adapted this ruling to suit themselves and make it slightly different so that they can, I suppose, so they can win over on what they prefer to do and what helps them. But the 50-10 really helps me, so that's what I'm going to focus on. So, when you are self-employed, you have multiple tasks because you are financial manager, managing director, marketing manager, guru, expert, the receptionist, the admin clerk, the coffee girl, guy. You are everything in your business. And hi Alana, how are you? So you have to do everything in your business, unless you're further down the line where you can start employing VAs and stuff like that, or employ other people. But if you're a solo entrepreneur, you are everyone and everything in your business. So you have multiple tasks that you have to do and you have to get done. And let's face it, the crappy ones get left. They're the ones that you put aside. How many of you don't do your admin? You don't put your files away? And we know from posts we've seen, you know, little piles of stuff setting up, and they do get left and they do get pushed to one side. So if you are somebody who struggles to do the stuff you don't like, this will help you. If you're somebody that really enjoys certain tasks and could spend all day doing it, this is also going to help you do that as well. Because the point is, when you enjoy a task, you can quite happily spend all day doing it. Let's face it, Facebook, things like that, there's a part of the marketing people like. You could spend all day and then look at the clock and think, oh my God, it's 4 o'clock and I've been on Facebook for the last 4 hours. And that isn't healthy either. So what this 50-10 rule does is make you stay focused in one task for a small period of time, making sure you get it completed, making sure that you stay interested, that your brain is focused on it, and then you can move on to something else. So you don't spend all day doing one thing and then get to the end of the day and realise that actually there's 5 or 6 other tasks you haven't got done, and now they're going to be carried over into tomorrow or left for weeks and weeks and weeks to get done. Now, some of the reasons why we don't do them is they're boring. We don't like doing them, admin tasks, things like that. Or if they're around us client-centred, it could be because your client isn't interested. Now, I know from personal experience, when I've worked with somebody that isn't putting the effort in and isn't trying and isn't doing the stuff that they're supposed to do, as my sessions build up with them, their stuff gets left, and I'm kind of putting them off a little bit, because part of me thinks, well, they can't be bothered, so I'm not going to put all that extra work in. So their admin might take a little bit longer to do. Still do it because that's part of my job, but I'm not as excited and not as driven to get their stuff done because they're not doing it. So you do get a little bit pissed with them. So that can be an issue as well. It can be because you don't like doing it, and the other reason can be because it's not something that you're very savvy on. So if it's technical stuff, website building, all of that kind of thing, if it's something that you struggle with, it's also something that you put off. And we all know from procrastination talks and training that they're the main reasons that we don't do them. But they're also the reasons why we don't stay focused on certain jobs as well, why we wander. So I don't know if it's just me, I'm doubting it, that when you log on to do something that you're not particularly fond of doing, in the middle of it you'll make a cup of tea, in the middle of 5-10 minutes later you'll just quickly check your emails. You're flitting in and out of that task constantly because you're not really interested, or because you find it difficult. You're not focused on it. Your brain is kind of thinking shiny stuff, and it's kind of looking around at what else it can do. I've even found myself thinking, do you know what, I'll go and do the ironing. Anything rather than doing that task. So the 50-10 rule is adopted by quite a lot of places. So if you look at TV shows, or the American TV shows, things on Sky, Sky Atlantic, all that kind of stuff, if you look at the time frame, most of their shows are 50 minutes, 55 minutes. The reason they're not on for exactly 60 minutes, it isn't to do with the adverts, it's to do with your brain and the way we take in information. And it's been proven time and time again that if you're looking and doing the same thing for an hour, you start to switch off. You start to think about other things. Your brain can't withhold the information for very long. Films and stuff, they're completely different. They're a different subject. But generally, the reason why TV shows are 50 minutes is so you can take in the information. It keeps you interested. Where's the dog? It keeps you interested so that you watch the next episode the following week, because it's captured you, it's got you interested, your brain's excited about it. As soon as it goes over the 60 minutes, your brain starts to get bored with that information and starts to kind of switch off, and it's not taken in anymore. So it's now barking at me. So it doesn't like it, and it sort of starts to kind of lose its focus, lose its interest, and starts to unwind from it. Same reason why if you've ever gone to a dinner party, people move you around with each course. Now, they generally say you move around during courses to keep your conversation going and make sure that you talk to everybody else. And it isn't. It's because most dinners, courses, starters, dinner, pudding, takes about 30 to 40 minutes each to eat, basically. And what happens is, within that 50 minutes, the person sitting next to you can become a bit boring, in all fairness, because when you have that conversation, there's a lot of things you start to talk about that you then kind of think, well, okay, we've done that, we know about your kids, I've learnt that they're a bronze swimmer now, a bit bored now. So you move to the next person. It stops you disliking that person you were sitting next to. So when you leave, you're networking, you're enjoying the company of everybody, rather than finding the boring person is somebody you don't want to talk to anymore, because you only had 50 minutes with them. They didn't get to become too boring, so that you then don't dislike them. So the next dinner party you go to, you're quite happy to sit next to that person because they haven't yet got under your skin and got too aggravating. So really, there's a theme to all of these things. So how the 50-10-minute rule works is you spend 50 minutes doing one task and then you have a 10-minute break. Now, when you're self-employed, breaks are something you don't give yourself. You do when you're employed because you want to get away from your desk, you want to go and have a coffee with Jane across the way, whatever. But you don't when you're self-employed. You tend to just sit there until it's done. And what's I can't even think of the word now, kind of reviews and studies have shown, is that when you're self-employed and you're working on a subject, if you spend more than 50 minutes doing one thing, you start to be less productive. So every minute after that 50 minutes is kind of a waste of time. You're working at half your productive time. So what you're better off doing is stopping after 50 minutes, having a break, doing something else and coming back to it. Because then when you are working on it, you're more productive. So the way that the process kind of explains and sort of tells you to work is, what you should do is start your day. So whatever time you decide to start working, you don't switch the computer on, you don't do anything, you don't read emails, nothing. What you do, you sit there with a blank piece of paper and you write your to-do list. And what you do is you write down all the things that you have to do that day. So 3 or 4 things that have to be done, because you know then the next day or so or later that day you need to do it. You need to have that information to hand. After you've written your to-do list, you then spend maybe 15 minutes of your time after that going through looking at the things that you want to do. So the things that you enjoy doing, the things that you like. And then you've got a nice little to-do list. You've got 3 or 4 things that you have to do, 4 or 5 things that you want to do. And then you can start switching on your computer, and then you can start looking at your emails and things like that. And I've got a little list here, so I'm just going to have a little look at it to make sure that I'm kind of covering everything. So what it says is 15 minutes to do your to-do list, and then 15 minutes prep. Now your 15 minutes prepping is really about making sure you've got everything you need. So you've got your Facebook open, you've got your pens and paper ready, you've got your flip chart out, anything that you're going to need to do those tasks, because now we've got our to-do list, we know what we need to do. So now what we need to do is prep and make sure we've got everything. Go and make your cup of tea, all of that kind of stuff. Then you can start your work. When you log onto your computer, you only look at the subject you're going to do. So you close your emails once you've finished looking at them. You close Canva once you've finished doing it. Don't have more than one subject header open on your computer at once. If you have a desk and you have an office, anything out on that desk that isn't related to the task you're actually doing, put it away. Don't have it out, because it's distracting. Whilst you're doing the current task and you're looking at something else that's there, you're thinking about what that's going to be and what you need to do with that. So your brain starts to try to do two things at once, and it can't. It gets distracted. Again, it's something shiny that you want to look at. And if the task you're doing is something that you don't like or you struggle with, then anything nice and shiny and exciting sitting just in front of you is going to be a really bad distraction. So make sure you've only got on your desk, out in front of you, open on your laptop or on your computer, what you're actually working on. So if you're doing your emails and you're going through emails, replying to clients, all that kind of stuff, you should have nothing else out, just your emails. If you're doing a new Facebook post or you're writing a blog, just that blog post is open. Just Canva or whatever system that you're using should be open. And what you do is you spend 50 minutes doing that task, no more. Now you can either set yourself a timer or just check the clock, but 50 minutes only. At the end of the 50 minutes, you stop exactly where you are. Doesn't matter if you've got one more email to look at or one more little thing to do. Doesn't matter. You just do your 50 minutes and then you put it away. And then you have a 10-minute break. And that might be going for a wee, it might be grabbing a coffee, it might be nipping downstairs to check what the postman's brought through the door, going and sit outside in the garden for 5 minutes. Whatever it is fine, but it needs to be for you. And when you're an entrepreneur and you're working from home or you're working on your own, those breaks don't happen and you don't give yourself the time to relax. So you give yourself 10 minutes. You have your 10 minutes, no more, and then you go back and you start another task. Look at your to-do list, what's next on the list, you start that. If after you've done your 2 or 3 things you know that there's more to be done, then you can go back to the task and you can do more on it. But don't go back to the same task straight after, because again, remember, your brain starts to switch off after 50 minutes, so you don't want to be doing that. Now, oh dear, excuse me, it's just joking now. So the task could be reading emails, client calls. So again, if you're on the phone to a client, try and keep it to 50 minutes if you can. It's going to be a bit more difficult sometimes if you're on long calls and things like that, but do try to keep it to 50 minutes if you can. It does work better. You're much more productive if you keep it to 50 minutes, okay? Now, your 10-minute breaks should literally be just 10 minutes. Reason for this is if you start to wander off and take a 20-minute break, half an hour break, an hour break, your brain starts to decide it's finished work for the day and it starts to shut down. And then what happens is, sorry, excuse me, I'm just going to have a cup of my Christmas tea. Your brain decides that actually we're done for the day, we've finished working. I'm going to shoot the dog in a minute. So, all the kids next door for winding the dog up. So what happens is your brain kind of says, oh, actually, we're done now, we're not working. And it starts to wind itself down. And then when you go back to doing your job, you're kind of doing it half-hearted because you're not really motivated, you're not really interested because your brain started to close down for the day. Now, this rule of 50-10 is used in Vogue. So the big magazine Vogue, all of their employees, they're told to work to the 50-10 rule. It's something they insist on. Now, I've not heard of many companies that would actually do that, but they insist that after 50 minutes, every one of their employees takes a 10-minute break and then comes back to it, because they've decided that their staff are much more productive doing 50-minute slots and then 10-minute breaks than if they're sat slogging at their desk for 2 or 3 hours, because that last hour or so, you're hardly productive at all. You're not really doing a lot because you're bored, you're distracted. You're probably starting to switch off and do your Tesco home delivery shop, all of that kind of stuff, because you're not really focused anymore. So that's how that works. Now, when you are working from home, it's very difficult to kind of have a social life, because you tend to work more hours when you're working from home than when you're working from an office. So, but you do need to have some social time. But one of the things that I would say is that you need to make sure that your social time, so calls your friends, nipping out for a break, is done before or after. Don't do it in the middle of the day. It's very easy to decide that actually what I'm going to do is going to do a little bit of work, then I'm going to go and meet my friend for coffee, then I'm going to do some work. But you're not motivated afterwards. After you've done that little social gathering, you've switched off, you've started to relax. Sorry, Lindsay. Yeah, exactly. 3 tasks. That's enough. That's, you know, just under 3 hours work, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. You know, it's because it's focus time, because you're working for yourself. It's really deadlined, hard working stuff. You're not just pottering and doing a few bits and making some calls. It's hard work and it's stuff for you, and it's going to be really brain taxing stuff. So 3 or 4 tasks a day is plenty, really. And if you take those 3 or 4 tasks and you spend 2 hours on them, that's an 8 hour day. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're sat in one place at your desk doing that, slogging at that, you're going to start to get really low and really depressed if you do nothing else. Because when you work from home, you don't have the social environment. You don't have John next door that you can have a little chat with, or the woman across the road that nips out for a cigarette, and, you know, and stuff like that. So I'm just reading the things, Lindsay. Yeah, and again, if you're better in the morning, then, see, I'm not. I'm awful in the morning, apart from the fact that I'm a miserable cow anyway. I'll be even more miserable first thing in the morning. But yeah, just work your times to suit your personality, and also what you're doing. You know, if you're somebody who is better in the afternoon, then make your hours afternoon onwards. You know, have the morning off, have a long bath, go for a walk, go to the gym, start your day at 11 o'clock onwards or at 2 o'clock onwards, work in the evening, whatever suits you better. You know, I've found, especially recently with this weather, I've been working at night, kind of 8, 9 o'clock at night, because it's cooler. It's, you know, and I've been taking my breaks and my time off in the morning and in the afternoon when it's really, really hot. Because I tried doing it and I was getting irritable and frustrated because I couldn't concentrate because of how warm it was. So if you're somebody that you know when you are better focused, then definitely work to those times. So the other things is about having a clear area. So making sure that if you have a desk or an office, that you make sure that that area is just for your work stuff, and that you are putting those things away when you're not working on them. So put the diary away if you're not using it, put the laptop away if you're not using it, you know, all of that kind of stuff. Shut down links, so making sure you haven't got 3 or 4 things open at the same time. Books, reading books, your new book you've bought on, you know, time management, whatever it might be, put it away if you're not reading it. Don't leave it out, because again, you're looking at it from across the way and you're distracted by it. And one of the big things as well is making sure that your workspace is for work. So don't start doing work from the sofa and then doing it from the kitchen, and try and find a space that is just for work, because that becomes your workspace. The same as when, if you've ever done any marriage counselling or anything like that, they say that you should never argue in the bedroom, because the bedroom should be a lovely place. It should be where you and your husband or your wife kind of communicate and, you know, are in love and all that kind of stuff. So if you are working on your bed, then when it comes to being all lovey-dovey with your husband, actually your brain starts thinking about work. And that's not very nice, is it? Especially for them. It doesn't do their ego any good. And it's not good for you. So find a space within the house or wherever it is that you are that you find comfortable, that you can work from. Lots of people will have desks and offices and stuff, but some people just won't have the space in the house for that. So find yourself a space that can be a workspace and use that for working. Because then when you sit at that table, or you sit at that desk, or you sit in that room, your brain is like, okay, I'm at work. It's a little bit like when you were working 9 till 5 and you put your suit on. Now, the job I used to do, I used to have a lanyard that I used to have to wear with my name and a swipe card and stuff. And I would put that on, and the minute I put that on, I was Tina the manager. All of a sudden, I had to be more professional, watch my language, behave myself, all that kind of stuff. When I used to go outside for lunch, I would take it off and put it in my handbag, because you know what, that was my lunchtime. That was my break from the office, from the people at work. So it helped me to kind of break from the two, and I used to feel a lot less stressed because I wasn't focused on being at work when I was at lunch, or being at lunch when I was at work. Yeah, I see, I hate clutter. I don't like it at all. But lots of people do. And some people don't like clutter, but still have it. I can't cope with it. I mean, I get all frustrated and stressed if there's a cup left out. My poor children go through hell. I'm constantly yelling and screaming about stuff being left around. Same as when people buy ornaments for you and I think, oh no, I've got to put that somewhere now and it's going to be left out. So, hi Rose, thank you for joining. So, they are my top tips, if you like, for staying focused and also for being able to just get the job done and getting out of the way. So, just to recap and summarise some of it, make sure your workspace is for work only. Make sure that it is clear and spacious and you have room to move. Make sure that you only have out what you're working on. So you haven't got loads of other stuff open and distracting you. If you're on the computer, make sure you are only looking at the thing that you're doing. So shut down your email, shut down Facebook, so you're not getting little pinging notifications to say this other fun stuff's going on while you're doing your taxes, all that kind of stuff. Do your social stuff before or after you start work, not in the middle, so that you are focused on work. Work time is work time, so a little bit like when you do the 9 to 5. Make sure you do your to-do list. So first thing you do is sit and write down what you need to do that day. First thing should be what you have to do, and then a list of things that you would like to do. Then after you've done that, and you've written out your little to-do list, and you know what you need to do, then you can start to kind of plan out your day, prepare what you need. So you've got your list of what you need to do, you've got your list of what you have to do, go and get all the stuff that you need, so it's all to hand, you're not rummaging looking for things, all of that kind of stuff. Then start off with your first task on your list. 50 minutes of doing that task and then a 10-minute break. Come back, 50 minutes of the second task, a 10-minute break. 50 minutes of the third task, 10-minute break, kind of know where the rest is going, and you can return to tasks that you've started that you didn't get finished after you've done a couple of tasks in between. But don't be doing it straight after each other because you're not motivated, you're not productive. One of the things I like doing is for every good task I do a crappy task. So something I enjoy, something I don't like doing. Something I enjoy, something I don't like doing. And I used to do that in my 9 to 5 job as well. When I did one-to-ones with people, I would do a really nice person that I really liked, and then a performance management one, or the person that cried, or the person that I didn't really get along with, and then I would do the really nice person, and it just made the day go a little bit easier. So you do all of those kind of things, and if you do those and you stick to those, you'll find that actually you're much more productive. You will get a lot more done in that 50 minutes than you thought you would. You'll get much more completed, you'll get through a lot. Also, if you know you've only got 50 minutes, you're much more focused on clearing it. And also you get to get some of those crappy jobs out of the way, and then you can do some of the fun stuff too, rather than just doing all your fun stuff and then getting to the end of the week and being left with 2 days of doing all the crap you don't like because you've put it off and you've put it off and you've put it off. And if you work to the 50-10 rule, you're a little bit like Vogue, so that's quite posh as well. That's quite nice, being like a big posh magazine. And if you do all those things, then you stay focused, you get the job done, just like my title said. But also you get to have fun with what you're doing as well. So they're my top tips. Hopefully you found them useful, and thank you, lovely ladies, for joining me on the live and watching, and hopefully it's been useful. And you can put this to the test, give it a go. If you're not sure, you think generally that won't work, then all I'd say is try it. You never know. Unless you try it, you just don't know if it'll work for you. There are lots out there, so some people work to the 25-minute rule or the 45-minute rule. Personally, I like the 50-10 rule because it does give you a break in between, and I think that's really, really important. But then I would, because I come from a background of working with people to balance work and life, so any tips I have will always include a little bit of you time in with work time. So leads me nicely to my little freebie at the end. So my coaching is working with professionals that need a work-life balance. So people that want the business, the great career, work their way up the corporate ladder or build a strong business, but they don't want to end up seeing their kids at the weekends or getting divorced because they never see their husband, or being so miserable they end up resenting the job that they do because they don't have a life. There is no point being a 6-figure entrepreneur if you never get to enjoy the money because you're too busy working. So I spend a lot of time with people helping them find a way to get that balance. So what I do have for a freebie for everybody is if I have a work-life balance wheel. and it's got a little bit of detail in there about how to work out how much time you spend doing certain things, how much time you spend at home, where you are overspending your time, where you are underspending your time, and then some great tips on how to get the balance right. So I will post that link in the comments. Thank you again for those of you that joined me. I'm not quite sure if I've gone over my time. I probably have. I usually do. I am bang on past. That is the first time in my entire life I have kept to time management. So how cool is that? A little bit excited. Anyway, before I start rambling and go over my time and ruin it for myself, I will cut off. Have a lovely rest of your evening. The weather is a lot nicer. It's a lot cooler. So for those of you still potting around your garden, have a lovely evening. And I will see some of you on the lives tomorrow. Anyway, take care. See you soon. Bye.